Hello, welcome back to another court report that was prepared in the 1990s. As is customary, I've changed all the names and some of the details to protect the identities of everybody concerned. Person that's appearing in court is 64 years old. I'm calling him Bert. Nice chap, really. 64-year-old Bert. So to prepare this report, I had a couple of interviews with him. One of them, he came with his wife, and I saw correspondence with various health professionals going back several years. I saw his bank statements and his financial status. Although requested, I didn't receive the Crown prosecution bundle of statements and record of previous convictions. Really bad, this, isn't it? So I really hope the situation has changed, but I was expected to press on and prepare the report regardless without this information. But I think it really unacceptable that this went on, and I hope it still doesn't happen today, because part of the role of a probation officer is to assess risk to the public, and you really need this. You need to know things like the victim's perspective of a crime, and you can only get this if you get the bundle from the prosecution service. And I think it's wholly unacceptable that we were expected to prepare reports without this prosecution bundle. This case, perhaps so, not so serious, but even so, we really need the record of previous convictions as well. So this case is a drink driving offence, driving with excess alcohol, from the 1990s. Bert told me he had one previous conviction from years ago, about 20 years before. So given it's such a long time ago, perhaps that previous conviction should be perhaps discounted, but even so, he should know better, really, even though there's 20 years. So basically, in the morning, he was driving along a road locally. A car braked suddenly in front of him, and Bert failed to brake quickly enough, resulting in him to go into the back of the car, causing 700 quid's worth of damage to it. The driver of the other vehicle noticed that Bert had been drinking and called the police. When breathalyzed, Bert was found to be over 3 times over the limit, with a reading of 125 milligrams in his breath, which is really high. The insurance have compensated the victim, which is important. So Bert makes it plain he deeply regrets his actions. He wishes to apologise. He explains he feels deeply ashamed of what he's done. He acknowledges that alcohol dangerously delays reactions when driving, and states he feels extremely relieved he did not hurt anybody. He confirms he has had an alcohol problem in recent years linked to depression. He says that previously he had been denying that he had an alcohol problem, but the incident has shocked him into action, stating that into starting to address his problem, and that recently he had a family meeting at his doctor's surgery, which was tremendously supportive and helpful, and he's beginning to feel physically better now, and mentally better now that he's stopped drinking. He's completely stopped drinking since his arrest, and he's feeling better now. He's experiencing other health issues, ailments and that, because of his alcohol misuse. He grew up in a town not far from London. He's got one sister 10 years older than him, and his dad was a school teacher. He went to grammar school as a kid. He was quite bright, but he left at 16 to take up an apprenticeship with aircraft manufacturers. He said his parents couldn't afford to keep him in education because, you know, when he was that age, people still had to pay for school fees and things like that. And it was after the war, I guess, that that school fees and that was stopped. He had to do national service, and after completing national service, he went to work as a clerical assistant for a big company, and he rose through the ranks to become chief clerk. He then progressed to work as office manager for this big company, and somebody in the noticed that he had really good people skills and dealing with people, and they promoted him into the role of personnel manager, HR manager we say nowadays. So they made him they encouraged him, and he took HNC and personnel management, HR management on a part-time basis at a local college, and he worked for electrical company. He worked in HR for electrical company for about 15 years. He was made HR manager of a factory on the south coast for this electrical company, and his family relocated to this town on the south coast. We'll call it Brighton, to Brighton, and he had to take out a bridging loan for this house in Brighton. But within several months to Brighton, a decision was made to close the plant down at Brighton, and they decided to make him the senior HR manager at their plant in London. But he was left with Bert was left with mixed feelings about the move from Hastings, as he felt his employers had planned to close the plant at Brighton before his move there, and he and his wife experienced a lot of difficulty in selling their home in Brighton, as the prices in property market were rapidly falling at that time. So Bert says he enjoyed his job at the London plant. He developed a good rapport with the employees, but he found the job really, really stressful when the firm decided to rationalise and make people redundant. He himself was made redundant in 1992, and within the last few months, the company was asked to head up a team giving talks to staff, but recalls feeling he felt really unhappy about the content of the talks, which he thought was not very truthful. So he found it really hard to live without work, having left the company, and to just as his wife was being the main breadwinner. It was through her efforts and maintaining a job that she managed to put their financial affairs in order and keep up to date on the mortgage repayments, but it all left him feeling quite worthless. Not many firms were interested in employing him, he said. He applied for numerous posts and found it really depressing when all his applications were unsuccessful. So he took up doing voluntary work at a local hospice, which involved him running errands and driving patients in his car and the like. And on the strength of this, he obtained a part-time job at a girls' school doing caretaking duties and driving the girls to sports fixtures in the school minibus. It seems that Bert's been suffering with depression for a considerable time, at least since 1991, when he was first prescribed medication for this. He's been, in the past, a moderate drinker of alcohol. He rarely went to public houses, but occasionally drank wine with meals. But in 1991, following his redundancy, he secretly began to use alcohol to comfort himself and as a prop. It would appear that he increasingly became dependent upon alcohol, but kept it secret from everyone and denies to everyone that he had a problem. However, in 1996, his dependency on alcohol became such that he had to give up his driving job at school. He dishonestly told his wife that he'd been made redundant, and subsequently gave up his other driving jobs for various charities because he said he'd become too depressed, but he realised he was a risk on the roads. He recalls he found it really hard to talk to his GP and to the consultant, and his psychiatrist told him to go to Relate. He found it hard to discuss his problems with his GP, and as a result, it was decided to increase his prescription for antidepressants, but he said it didn't make him feel any better. His drinking worsened from 1998 onwards. His physical mental health appeared to decline, which also concerned his wife and daughter, who both were so worried that they went to consult his GP. But his wife felt that these meetings were unproductive. As a consequence, she wrote a letter to the local psychiatrists at the hospital, expressing concern that his depression seemed to be worsening and that he appeared to be increasingly physically unwell, and to be experiencing worrying hallucinations. So at that meeting, it was described to keep a watching brief over the situation. His antidepressant medication was kept the same, but the suspicions were that he wasn't really, if there were any suspicions that Mr. Nash, Bert had any alcohol problem, they weren't openly voiced by the health professionals, and he continued to have severe hallucinations, and he was treated on an emergency basis for this. Bert and his wife changed GP following this, and a meeting was held at the doctor's surgery when his family were made present, and the new GP made it clear that he was profoundly depressed and had a severe alcohol problem which needed addressing. So Bert started attending AA meetings after the accident, and he had an appointment with a local community drug and alcohol team. He also disclosed that he had outstanding debts of £14,000 on his credit card, which he built up over a number of years, and it would appear that he'd been spending all that money on alcohol, which is really worrying. So his wife's taken control of the family finances. They've sold some family items to cover their debts, but they still owe about £3,000 to the credit card and £7,000 to a major bank loan, and they're paying these off gradually monthly. So an interview he presented as really kind individual with many qualities, particularly in dealing with people. But it's apparently that he's got very, very low self-esteem, that he's been clinically depressed for many years since his redundancy, and this has led him to develop a chronic addiction to alcohol. And like many other people, he's got a very high, he's one of these people who can drink a lot of alcohol and still appear to function quite well. But, you know, it's really, really been damaging his health. He's a really intelligent chap who appears generally ashamed of his actions and motivated towards ensuring he doesn't reoffend. And I actually doubt that he's going to pose a risk to the public. And I believe probation will help him and be really beneficial in pushing him in a positive direction and help him remain totally abstinent of alcohol. So the plan would be, I would propose probation, that he does some relapse prevention work with a professional drug and alcohol counsellor, that probation would monitor his future behaviour and supervise him strictly in accordance with national standards, assist him with his efforts to keep on track with his alcohol problem, to liaise really with his doctor and GP medical services regards his general health, and in particular to help him secure professional counselling for his depression, which he hasn't had really, and this is really urgent. The other thing is to refer him to a professional organisation for careers and educational advice. I would personally encourage him to take up further education, such as Open University. Look at other ways to improve his self-esteem, such as encouraging him to do charitable work. Encourage him to adopt a more positive and supportive role towards his partner, such as taking up cooking duties and cleaning duties at home and other household tasks. Explore the possibility of him joining an organisation and do voluntary and charity work, and also to help him oversee his family finances and put them in order, and to come to terms with the various people, his lenders, that they got these outrageous debts to. So really sad case. So the option really is, should he get sent to prison? Many people would say yes, but just think what damage it would do to this guy. Or should we give him probation? And I think probation would indeed be very, very worthwhile and very purposeful to help this man put his life back on track. All the very best now, and I hope you enjoyed looking at this video and found it interesting. All the very best now. Bye bye.